1980s, when Deerfoot Trail was first expanded, they called it the Great White Elephant because it would never need, Calgary would never need the capacity of what was done at that time. And then here we are. As a proud member of this community for the last over 20 years and a frequent user of this bridge, I know firsthand how much this is needed. As one of Canada's fastest growing cities, Calgary needs strategic investments to support our economy, reduce congestion, and improve safety for families and businesses. That's exactly what today's announcement is about, delivering the infrastructure that we need to keep up with the growth and ensure our road network is strong for years to come. And on that note, it is my pleasure to introduce the Minister of Transportation and Economic Corridors, a strong advocate for building Alberta's future, Minister Devin Dreeshen.
Well, thank you very much, Miles, and thanks everybody for being here today. It's always great to be able to talk about Budget 25, which was just tabled in the House up in Edmonton a couple weeks ago, back on February 27th. And Budget 25 is a key focus from Budget 25 is helping Alberta meet the challenges ahead with targeted investments that'll help with the growing population we have here in Alberta, as well as to keep pace with our economic growth. And now as Alberta grows, so does the need for safe, reliable, and effective infrastructure to support communities across the province, to attract investment and boost economic development. And that's what we're doing with our $8.5 billion but 3-year capital plan in Transportation Economic Corridors budget. Now, this investment represents a third of $1 billion increase compared to last year's budget. Now, that adds up to more than $4 billion for rural communities in every corner of this province, $2.1 billion in the Calgary region, and $2 billion for the Edmonton region. And I know I already got some flack from the Calgary councillors about some Oiler Flame joke that could be included there with Calgary getting more. But overall, in this capital plan, we are making strategic investments to support the development of economic corridors that will create employment opportunities for Albertans, will create economic growth across the province now and in the years to come. Now, our capital plan includes more than $2.6 billion over the next 3 years for critical infrastructure on our provincial highway network. Here in Calgary, we are making significant investments to improve transportation. Budget 25 includes $2.1 billion over 3 years in road and bridge construction projects and municipal grants to benefit the Calgary region. This includes $1.4 billion in grants to the City of Calgary, with $1.3 billion for Calgary's LRT projects. We are supporting Calgary's Blue Line Northeast Extension project with nearly $14 million. We're also investing $173 million for infrastructure to support the Calgary Rivers District and Event Centre, helping to revitalize Calgary's downtown. Budget 25 also includes $691 million in capital investments for major construction projects here in Calgary, such as Deerfoot Trail upgrades for $485 million, which you can see right here behind me, the Springbank Reservoir, the Bow River Reservoir, and the completion of Calgary's Ring Road on the West Stony Trail, and also the completion of Highway 201 Bow River Bridge on the Southeast Stony Trail, and also the completion of the Stony Trail at the airport interchange. Now for Edmonton, we're investing $2 billion over 3 years in road and bridge construction projects, which includes over $1.8 billion in capital grants for the City of Edmonton. This includes $1.6 billion for Edmonton LRT projects and funding projects like the Ray Gibbon Drive expansion in St. Albert with $32 million, the Terwilliger Drive widening at $31 million, the Capital Region Wastewater Treatment Project at $10 million, Yellowhead upgrades at $106 million, and Budget 25 also includes $130 million in capital investments in other major construction projects, such as Highway 16A and Range Road 20 at $20 million, Highway 19 at $17 million, Highway 2 and the 65th Ave interchange near Leduc at $40 million. Now, outside of the two big cities is obviously rural Alberta, and this government is investing all over this province, and especially in northern Alberta. So $1.25 billion over the next 3 years will be invested into the north and road and bridge construction projects That's everything from Highway 63 twinning north of Fort McMurray at $101 million, Highway 881 at $141 million, the Lacrete Bridge at $87 million, Highway 40 widening from Hinton to Grand Cache at $69 million, and the Laloche Connector Road, or Highway 956, at $7 million in engineering, as well as Highway 60 with $127 million, and then obviously the much talked about Highway 686 that would eventually connect Fort McMurray to Grand Prairie and connecting northern Alberta from east to west. And we're also investing with grants in the North region with the Fox Lake access improvements of $6 million, as well as the O'Cheese Road improvements at $8 million. Now in southern Alberta, we're making key infrastructure investments with $363 million over 3 years in road and bridge construction projects. These include Highway 3 twinning between Tabor and Burdett at $106 million, the Highway 2 Balzac interchange replacement at $92 million, Highway 1A at Stoney First Nation at $24 million, and Highway 2 and 40th Ave interchange near Airdrie at $9 million, and in my own riding, a Highway 11 twinning between Sylvan Lake and Rocky Mountain House. And we've also invested $186 million for engineering and planning for 50 more upcoming announcements and projects across this province. As well, our capital plan has $1.7 billion in capital maintenance and renewal over the next 3 years. Now, those funds would go to road rehabilitation, pavement overlay, slide repairs, and bridge deck replacements to preserve and extend the life of our existing road and bridge network. Now, I could spend hours up here, and it's a little bit warmer than it was this morning, but I'll stop there and just say that together, these investments in Budget 25 allow us to meet the challenge of a rapidly growing population and enable us to maintain a safe and efficient transportation network to support our economy and our high quality of life. Now, with that, I'd like to invite Councillor Dan McLean to the podium. Thank you.
Thanks, Minister Dreeshen and the Government of Alberta for funding this incredible project. Isn't it exciting? Maybe not today, when it's cold and mucky, but in the future when this is widened and traffic is flowing freely, not too fast, even though there's not going to be any photo radar here, but I'm a Southie, so I'm from the South, and if everybody in Calgary knows this is a real bottleneck that comes through here, not just for South Calgarians, but for everybody in all the other communities to the south of us, to the north of us, traveling down this huge economic corridor. It is not just for the city of Calgary, like Minister Dreeshen said. It's for all of Alberta. All the goods and the traffic and the economic stimulation that comes through from here up to even Edmonton and the smaller communities, which I know Minister Dreeshen is also a small city guy, understands the importance of those communities as well. I'm just very excited that this is not only for our great city, but for all of Alberta. Look forward to it being done, and thanks for everybody for coming out this morning on this chilly day. Thanks. And with that, I'll introduce Ruhi from the Chamber, Calgary Economic Development.
Good morning. It's great to be here. My name is Ruhi Ismail-Deja, and I'm the Vice President of Policy and External Affairs with the Calgary Chamber of Commerce. Infrastructure is the backbone of a strong and growing economy. Roads, bridges, water systems, and transit networks aren't just lines on a map. They're the connections that keep businesses moving, families thriving, and communities growing. And that's why the province's increased investment is so important. Every dollar spent generates economic returns, creating jobs, driving business investment, and improving productivity. Whether it's new roads that reduce congestion, modernized water systems that support growing industries, or transit expansions that improve mobility, these are the investments that will fuel our long-term prosperity. Infrastructure is also critical to trade. And as a province reliant on imports and exports, Alberta's ability to compete globally depends on efficient, reliable trade infrastructure. Investing in modern, effective trade infrastructure lowers the cost of imports, strengthens supply chains, and helps Alberta businesses reach international markets faster. And having robust trade infrastructure isn't just good policy, it's what Albertans expect. We must champion critical infrastructure projects, ensuring that Alberta remains competitive on the world stage, and that includes investments in roads, highways, and transit that connect people and goods across the province and beyond. One of the projects that will have a transformative impact is the connection of Calgary's Blue Line LRT to the airport. Transit infrastructure is critical, connecting people to each other, to employment, to social services, to local businesses, and in the case of the airport, to the world. As a major economic hub, having direct transit links supports easier access for travelers, for employees, and it supports tourism, strengthens our role in global trade and investment. Efficient transportation infrastructure isn't just about moving people. It's about making our cities more competitive and attracting new business opportunities. Smart infrastructure investments don't just meet today's needs. They create opportunities for future growth. They unlock housing developments, support business expansion, and enhance supply chains. Investing in infrastructure isn't just about keeping pace. It's about setting the stage for a stronger, more connected, and more prosperous future for our country. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce Dennis Leonard with Alberta Road Builders.
Thank you. Thank you very much. On behalf of the ARHCA, I would like to thank Minister Dreeshen and his team for the hard work put in on this budget. We've said for a long time as contractors that we need stable funding to allow for our member companies to have the ability to plan for the future of Alberta. This budget is definitely going in the right direction with increased funding to support our growing population and our growing economy. We anxiously await the release of the tenders contemplated within this budget. Together, we look for ways to achieve the best value for the public, for the taxpayers. To do this, risks need to be mitigated, most recently with regards to the tariffs, which are outside of all of our control. We look forward to dialogue with the department and for performing this work over the coming year. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. We're now going to go into questions from the media. If you can please go to the mic just behind the cameras for any reporters in person. Just a reminder, we are following one question, one follow-up. Please state your name and the outlet.
Hi there, Dreeshen, Global News. What was it here? The 186 million for the 50 other projects. Are those also all going to be across Alberta, or is there a specific area that the province is going to be targeting?
Yeah, the engineering projects are scattered all across the province. So those are future ones that obviously, depending on the project, could take a year or two to design, and then typically you'd have the construction dollars follow right afterwards. So that list, we have that list, but they're scattered all across the province, including in the cities as well.
And the 1.3 for the LRT enhancements here in Calgary, that's specifically for the Blue Line expansion. So this is separated from any Green Line sort of funding.
No, it's Blue and Green Line funding. So the Blue Line has two parts. So there's obviously to finish the work that's ongoing right now to get it that much closer to the airport. This also has this budget 25 has engineering funding that'll finally tie it into the airport, and that project will be an expensive one to finally tie it in, but there is engineering dollars for that final stage of the Blue Line coming in. But the Green Line obviously is part of this budget. We're actually, just an update on the Green Line, I've been speaking with my counterpart in the federal government, who's still my counterpart after today. He's hoping that it can be a ministerial approval on the business plan that the province and the city has worked on the new alignment that goes above ground downtown and obviously stretches out to Shepherd. So we're hoping to get that final ministerial approval of the business case very soon. So obviously construction tenders can go out and we can finally see construction on the Green Line as soon as possible.
Thanks for your question. Next question.
Hi, Darren Krause, Livewire Calgary. Just on the Green Line, I know the province has said that there's no additional funding and any cost overruns would be, the responsibility of the city of Calgary. But with something unforeseen like tariffs, is the province willing to be a little bit more flexible in perhaps covering some of those costs should they become an issue on Green Line construction?
So two things. One, Budget 25 also has a change when it comes to LRT projects, whether it's Calgary or Edmonton, as pay on progress. Something that we've done in the past, which has kind of had a dedicated allotment of money for LRT projects to the major cities. But with this change of pay on progress, we're hoping it kind of incentivizes the construction to get underway as soon as possible. So obviously that can go one way or the other for the government. We can actually be putting more money out into the LRT projects if actually construction happens sooner. But when it comes to, so that's a change in this year's budget. But when it comes to tariffs, we're obviously working with the construction industry to get a good understanding of what it means for being able to bring in, import any American products. Thankfully, here in Alberta, a lot of our construction companies are Canadian. They're Albertan or they're European. So that's been helpful for us on the procurement side. But with the looming tariffs and it seeming like it changes by the day or by the hour, that's just something that we'll have to address as it comes. But we are working closely with the construction industry to really have a good understanding of whatever new list of tariffs come and how that affects our construction industry.
Follow-up question just on the Blue Line extension. So, I mean, we've got the money for the Blue Line extension. Is the province prepared to contribute to the actual connector? You had mentioned that it's going to be a significantly more expensive project. The province is willing to participate in that one as well?
Yeah, once the final Blue Line that connects into the airport, once that's engineered, it would be my hope that a city council, as well as a province, the federal government, could all come to the table and fund that final extension. So we don't know what the obviously cost is because we haven't engineered it yet. But yeah, that's something that we'd obviously work with the city, assuming a new council after the next municipal election. But yeah, that is something that we'll definitely have that conversation when the time comes.
Thank you.
I don't know if you want to mention. You're good?
Hi, Minister Dreeshen. Alicia Fielberg with CTV News. I'd like to ask you a bit about photo radar. The Premier has mentioned that she does support actually adding photo radar to high-risk intersections, so not just in the school zones. Is that something that will be allowed? And if so, what are the details around that? Would that be allowed on provincial highways if the intersection involves that? And who determines what is a high-risk intersection?
No, great question. The department's reached out to all the municipalities in Alberta that use photo radar as well as law enforcement to inform them of the new photo radar guidelines that'll actually come into force on April 1st. And just so all Albertans know that the use of photo radar in Alberta will be used for traffic safety and not revenue generation by the municipalities. And we're ensuring that by making sure that photo radar is going to be concentrated in those three areas that you mentioned, school, construction, and playground zones. But there will be a possibility for a municipality to apply for an exemption to go outside of those three zones, to go into an intersection or an area in which there is a actual demonstrated high collision area, and then they actually have the statistics to prove it. And that is something that we would then, there would be an exemption process that the municipality would follow, submit it to the provincial government. If we obviously agree with that, then the photo radar could be used in that location outside of those three areas. And that location, though, would have a 2-year audit just to make sure that it is being used properly. So we really want to instill confidence for all Albertans that photo radar is being used for traffic safety. And I think with these new conditions that we're putting on photo radar, Albertans can have that confidence.
Okay, and just to clarify, that's April 1st they take effect, and it could involve provincial highways. If you did agree that it met that threshold, the province agreed on that.
Well, as of right now, we haven't seen any of the exemptions come in or any requests for anything on a provincial highway. So as of right now, it's the main school, construction, and playground zones. And then it'll just be a case-by-case basis that a municipality could apply for a new photo radar location.
Thank you for your question.
And
thank you for your question.
Hi, Howard May from Great West Media. Minister, in light of recent affairs in the news and the job losses are piling up already, can you clarify for us your participation in rallies south of the border or in support of Trump? Are you a Trump supporter or not now? Have you had a change of heart?
Well, I'm an Alberta cabinet minister. My family's been in Alberta since the 1800s. I'm pretty much as Albertan as it gets. So when it comes to any trade war that we have, obviously this government is putting Albertans first, Alberta's jobs first. That's why we've seen the Premier go down to the U.S., talk to U.S. decision makers and lawmakers and influencers to make sure that Alberta's interests are protected, our industries are protected, and our economy is protected. And I think that's something that we're seeing lots of premiers across the country engage in that. And I think our premier is doing the best to represent our province. So that's something that, as a government, we'll obviously continue to do.
Okay, so you don't regret your trips down to those rallies?
My time going down to the U.S., I've met a lot of interesting people, and it was a really unique experience for sure. Their politics is a lot different than ours, but at the end of the day, I'm an Albertan through and through.
Thanks for your question. We're going to go online. Operator.
Thank you. If you wish to ask a question over the phone, please press *1 on your telephone keypad. Please note that please ask one question and one follow-up. Your first question comes from the line of Kyle Moore from Kix FM. Your line is now open.
Hi there. My question here is for Minister Dreeshen. Much has been made recently about government spending, particularly up here in the northwestern part of the province. What are some of the big, projects on the transportation side of things that we can look forward to on happening here in northwestern Alberta?
Well, there's a lot of funding for Highway 43 and Highway 40 in and around Grand Prairie. We've seen, obviously, lots of expansion of oil and gas activity in that area. And you have that unique transportation mix of large, heavy trucks as well as regular trucks, but commuter vehicles as well in that region. So it's really important, even though they may not have the high traffic numbers, but the type of traffic up in northwestern Alberta is something that we take seriously, and that's why we're investing in essentially having a ring road around Grand Prairie, as well as twinning and widening roads up there as well. So overall in the north, $1.25 billion is going into the capital plan for northern Alberta. And when you look at the $10+ billion of oil and gas royalties, a lot of that the province receives, a lot of that obviously comes from the north, and we want to make sure the infrastructure in the north can accommodate that and obviously grow that really important sector.
Follow up.
Yes, and as a follow-up to that, certainly there have been a number of different ones that people have been sort of focused on, like Highway 88 and the Peace River Bridge. There have been a variety of projects people have been wanting to see done there. What's kind of, I guess, the province's sort of long-term plan when it comes to dealing with a number of projects up here in the region that people want to see get finished?
Well, when it comes to Highway 88, Budget 25 actually has $33 million for the development of that. It's a 30-plus kilometer road north of Slave Lake, and it's a very narrow road. And again, you have lots of heavy truck traffic on it, and that's something that we're actually going to put it into 3 different segments. So the closer to Slave Lake segment has a CN track, so obviously it's going to take a little more working with them, but the engineering will be underway. The middle section of Highway 88, we're going to see some utility moves this year and construction on it, and then obviously the north part of Highway 88 has some waterways and some more environmental permits that are going to slow down that a little bit. But hopefully see major construction on that portion next year. So Highway 88, it's in the budget, but you're right. There's so many projects, and my Treasury Board colleagues would tease me to say that if you doubled or tripled transportation's budget, you'd have a lot of smiling Albertans seeing a lot of needed infrastructure finally being built. We got a $1/3 billion increase, but we obviously could have got more, and with the road builders behind me, I'm sure they would have been smiling too if we could have got more. But there is $8.5 billion in this year's capital budget is going to build a lot of really important projects all across the province.
Next caller, just a reminder to state your name and outlet. Operator.
Your next question comes from the line of Dennis Covden from CBC Fort McMurray. Your line is now open.
Minister, can you please tell how the projects in Northern Alberta that you mentioned are going to help integrate the North into the broader Alberta infrastructure network, and how these new projects are going to aid the economic development of the northern regions in this province?
Well, the Highway 63 twinning is really important. I was just up in Fort McMurray a couple months ago, and just saying that the workers going up north, coming into Fort McMurray, having the 63 twinned, really does a lot to instill people even moving back to Fort McMurray and not flying in and out, because now they know it's that much quicker and easier to get to work and to get into town. So that's a really important project, and it's obviously underway. And Highway 686, the possibility of that new highway, a 200 plus kilometer highway that has to be built through the bush, straight east of Fort McMurray, going to Peerless Lake and essentially connecting into Grand Prairie. That's a game changer for the north. It not only opens up oil and gas and forestry operations, but it also gives that secondary access in and out of Fort McMurray in the case of a fire or flood ever happening again. So it's not just 63 going in and out. So that's a really important. Those are two really important projects, I think, in the Fort McMurray area, and something that, again, with the royalties and the economic activity that comes from the Fort McMurray region, we want to make sure that the province is investing in that area.
Thank you, and I've got to follow up. Maybe the Road Builders and Heavy Construction Association will also want to chip in. How will local companies, and I guess to what degree will local companies benefit from this increased investment into infrastructure projects in Alberta's northeast?
Alberta Road Builders has pushed for a long time to try to get these projects spread out. Inevitably, as we spread out a variety of scopes of projects from very small, which benefit very, very local people in these rural communities, to large ones that, much like this one behind us, that employ multiple companies as subcontractors. It just the volume of work in itself inevitably will be spread throughout all of the contractors across our province. And as Alberta Road Builders, with over 700 member companies spread from border to border, it's going to benefit everybody.
We have time for two more questions.
Your next question comes from the line of Jaden Wasni from City News. Your line is now open.
Hey, good morning, Minister Dreeshen. Just wondering where things are at with the Green Line in Calgary, if you can provide us with any updates there.
Yeah, as I said, with the Green Line, we're still waiting on the federal government to approve the business case that they've had, I think, now for a couple months. And something that once that is completed and the business case is signed off, and obviously as a funder, the federal government has to agree to the business case that the province and the city have completed. And once that is done, then the province and the city are going to be working on sending out tenders, obviously, to actually start the construction finally after a decade of delay, to finally get the Green Line under construction. And Calgarians will finally see tracks getting laid on the Green Line since it was first promised back in 2015. So I think that's a really important, it'll be a really important step once hopefully we get that approval from the federal government. And then we can see major construction on the Green Line happening this year, which I think a lot of Calgarians from a lot of radio shows that I've done are kind of in disbelief that the Green Line will ever be built. But we're very, very close to finally getting those construction tenders finally out.
Follow up.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much.
Last caller, please.
Your last caller comes from the line of Adam McVicar from Global News. Your line is now open.
Hi, Minister. Thanks for taking my question. Federal cabinet was sworn in this morning. I'm just hoping to get your thoughts on the lack of Alberta representation on this federal cabinet.
Well, it was interesting. I think it's about 90% of the exact same cabinet. So I think some positions have changed. I think my new transportation counterpart is Chrystia Freeland. So obviously you'll be looking forward to that conversation with her. She's originally from Northern Alberta, so I hope she understands the importance of economic corridors and being able to get our products to market. I also found it interesting that Prime Minister Carney put her as the internal trade minister as well. So transportation, economic corridors, she's transportation and internal trade. So I'm hoping we can have some really good dialogue and get a response to my letter that I sent to her predecessor about having an economic corridor agency that the federal government would work with the provinces and First Nations across the country to be able to build big mega infrastructure projects again in Canada. You look at whether it was CP, rail initially hundreds of years ago, or the Trans-Canada Highway. I think lots of people think that you can't build big projects that span cross provinces anymore, and I think that I'm hoping that she'll be amenable to that, but we'll see how that conversation goes.
Follow up.
Are you anticipating doing much work with the new federal cabinet, considering rumors of an election call?
Well, we obviously have to. They are. Prime Minister Carney is the Prime Minister of Canada, even though he hasn't had to go to Canadians and get elected. And I'm unaware of when they're going to call a federal election, so it could be within weeks. It obviously could be in the fall, where I think if there's a deal with the NDP to stretch it out to the fall. I've also heard there's lots of NDP MPs that would get their pension if it was stretched out to the fall of this year. So I'm not sure of what deals the NDP and Liberals are doing in Ottawa. But regardless of who is in power in Ottawa, we have to work with the federal government, and we'll see what happens. I think we're just kind of observers, like everyone, to see when the election is going to be called finally federally.
Thanks, everyone. That's all the time we have for questions.
Thank you, and thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.